The Overwatch League has its own fair share of creative and zany strategies, and I think in an era that Dallas Fuel is struggling, maybe mechanically in its teamwork, I think that its overall macro strategy is flourishing, and I think that their cool little set strategy here with Sombra and Roadhog actually does really well and has a lot of merit. And I wanted to break that down for you guys today. So the idea here that, if it's not, jumping off the page at you, is that AKM is going to hack this health pack and Rascal and Taimu are going to be playing around it. And I think that's exactly what you should be doing with Sombra on this old Overwatch League patch, where Sombra's health pack charge or health pack healing does actually equate to her ult charge, and it, gives her ult charge, right? The idea here that they're working with is that because Gibraltar point A right at spawn is so narrow, you can set up your supports here. You can have Mickey rotating around. Maybe if he needs healing, he can immediately rotate and pivot around the keystone here. Or he can peel back and defend the supports. Taimu sets up on the high ground. He either sets up on the high ground or he defends the health pack itself, because once this strategy gives up this key point, if it gives up basically the use of Sombra, you have to rotate back into server room, and that's the next kind of stage of this attack or this defense, right? The next stage of this defense, if they do lose at this early defense on point A, at basically at the attacker spawn, they have two choices, right? They can either go back to server room, hack the mega health hack in server, and rotate around that with a similar composition. It's interesting there that they're running Genji, because that makes a lot of sense, because if you're running Tracer, you're forced to swap into Tracer. Granted, ult charge for Tracer isn't really hard to get, but Genji does kind of snowball or anti-snowball into, a second defense into server room, right? Their second option is to completely change their composition. Let's say we put AKM on Soldier, and let's say we put Rascal on Tracer, right? And then we put Taimu on Winston. So we're completely changing the paradigm of the team composition, and we're going for more of a standard defense coming into the second round of defense, if you want to call it that, for point A. This way that if you do take, another team fight loss and they do cap point B or point A and they go into point B, you have a very standard composition that you can set up on in hangar phase and even snowballing into the third point, so you're not stuck on this Sombra pick. You don't feel like you have to keep using it over and over and over because you have that residual ult charge, right? But that's the kind of idea on this first attack, and why it could, it actually has quite a bit of merit, I think, rolling into the second phase. But let's just kind of see exactly what happens, and do a little bit of a, not commentary, but a little bit of analysis. Here, I think that Taimu has the right positioning. I think he has the right idea. If he would have gotten that pick there, it really shuts them down. Again, sleep dart. It's really hard for anybody kind of coming out of this choke to do anything here, because you're just getting pillboxed, you're getting kind of machine gun turreted, and you're getting flanked by a Roadhog, which is never nice, right? You never want to just give Roadhog just open sight lines for you to just deal with him. Not only that, but his self-sustain is immense here, because he has the take a breather, he has the Sombra pack, which is just up all the time. Like, you kind of dislodge him unless you just instantly burst him. So I think that an interesting counter strat here for teams to use, and we'll see this in the next clip that I want to show you, is either Hanzo or Reaper. If you kind of blanket your Reaper and basically everybody, and you just bum rush the health pack, there's really not much Taimu can do here, and there's not much help that anybody can give him other than just getting on the health pack. Not only that, but you're just building ult charge like an animal. You are giving Sombra in that sense. Like, if you do kind of go that route and you just 6-man dive the health back over here, you're just smacking the Roadhog pinata. You're just milking him for ult charge, and let's say he doesn't die, like, you're just going to have an insane ult advantage. You are going to give Sombra ult. You are going to give Taimu probably ult. But everybody else is going to have a hard time actually getting anything done there. And I think that Reaper could shred through Roadhog there. But I'm not sure. But Boston actually has some interesting strategies coming into the second point. But there's one more point I want to make here in the Florida-Dallas match. And it's when... Okay, 2 points. I lied. The reason why Florida feels like they have to come along this right-hand side is because they feel like this is the pressure point. They feel like this is the biggest threat. While I like the thought process here, and I like the idea that they're kind of adapting mid-match, I feel like this is your biggest problem, the Roadhog. This is hard to dislodge. It is kind of like a wonky strat that you don't normally get every day. I think the idea here would have been to immediately just dive them. I think Logix could have been Genji here, even though we've never really known Logix to play Genji. Doesn't really play into his hero pool, but just in a concept, right? Like if we didn't have player names and everybody could play everything, I think that just running Genji Tracer dive here and just diving the backline here does quite a bit, because if we look at Dallas's composition, they don't have a shield or anything to mitigate any damage for these two. Yeah, they have a Sombra EMP if it's up. Yes, they have defense matrix, but barring that, you don't really have much defensive options. You have lots of aggressive and like offensive options, but you don't have a lot to protect your backline here. So if they just get dove, I don't know exactly what the call is for Dallas there. Another thing to note, which leads into my second point, is if you just kind of ignore Taimu here and you know, essentially don't get hooked, he's actually in a really awkward position because the cart just continues to move and it's a 5v6. And this is again kind of operating within the logic that Florida does ignore Taimu, and maybe they're running dive, maybe they just kind of weasel past him. He's in a really weird position because now it screws with their second round defense. The idea here, I think, is to legitimately fight on this point alone, either win or lose. And if they continue to just push the cart, it really messes with the dichotomy of the second round here. I think that if you fight here, even if you fight here on this first point, right at their spawn, and you lose, you can always rotate back off of spawn, rotate the strategy, rotate the composition, things like that. But you can always waste more time if you fight right here. Right, because I think that's the idea of defense, is to just waste time. It's just to burn time on the cart. If you can full hold them, great, but I don't think that's necessarily the game plan. And I think that these teams are, I think everybody in the Overwatch League is just too good to necessarily get full hold. Maybe barring Shanghai, but I think that coming into stage 3 that they probably won't have those problems either. But again, we're going to see this kind of strategy fall apart once Taimu gets kind of left behind here. Again, Sombra into Zen. It's a really hard time for Zen players out there. But here it is. They're calling the draw back, and I believe this is Taimu right here. And this is where the team starts to fall back. Taimu doesn't necessarily... it feels like there's mixed signals here, because now they're being pinched. And they give it up. There we go. Taimu, Mickey, AKM, they've given up the pivot point. Now I think you just completely give this half of the map up, let them push through car wash for free, that's fine, and then just fight them again at server room, because it's the same ordeal. They're not going to have a ton of space to work with. You can set your supports on the high ground here, and they have to just fight into a losing battle. They don't have the high ground advantage. It's going to be hard for them to get high ground advantage with McCree, and you can just pick them apart. But I want to jump into one more clip of this strategy doing some work against Boston Uprising. So here we have the Dallas Fuel Boston Uprising match, and lo and behold, Dream Casper is running Hanzo. Not only for the simple fact that he can, you know, scout with it, and he does, right? He throws the recon arrow just to see if Dallas is running their set strategy, which is proven now that they used it twice. I think if you even use it once, it warrants a Hanzo check, even to just see if anybody's out of position, see if anybody's in some weird forward positions. It really doesn't hurt you by any means. I'm going to keep saying it till I think more teams do it. It wastes maybe 4 seconds to come out, Hanzo check, come back, you know, swap heroes again back to, you know, whatever composition you want to use, and it's a zero-sum game. You don't lose anything here, because if you check here, you have 2 options. Option 1, there's somebody there. Great. Now we know 100% what they want to do. Option 2, nobody's there, and we know that they can't be here. So you at least get some information. Even no information is some information here. If you don't see anybody, you know that they aren't here because we didn't see them. So I think you don't lose anything there, right? But there, again, there's a little bit more merit to the Hanzo pick, because if you instantly just scatter arrow Taimu here, the strategy falls apart and they're forced to rotate back to server room and hold there, because the defender of the rotate point, the pivot point here, is just gone. He's the kind of sole defender that's gonna kind of take on the brunt of the force there, and that's the key spot. This is the key spot right here. If you could take this against Dallas's kind of aggressive strategy, if you take this ground, this kind of territory, if you want to call it that, I don't know how else to explain it. If you take that, you beat this comp right here, and you force them either to switch or to rotate back and try again. But it doesn't work out necessarily that way for Boston. They have a little bit harder of a time. Striker kind of dips around a little too early. I think that it's hard to Hanzo scout if, you know, people are just maybe running a little too quickly, if that makes sense. Like they're you can't just run before you have the information. Like there could be a trap, but you don't know because you're already running. If that really didn't make sense, but if it did, great. I hope that it did make sense. EMPing tanks, big deal here. It helps to not mitigate Taimu and just lets him run wild. The big problem with Roadhog is that if he hooks anybody but the D.Va, she can swoop in and actually block it quite a bit. So they're going to be focusing D.Va here a lot. I think D.Va is probably the crux of many strategies. You see Tracers bursting her. You see Roadhogs hooking her. You see Zarya's farming on her. There's a reason for that, and it's because she's insane, and she's very, very good. She blocks everything. She blankets her team. She attacks, she defends, she does it all. Get you a girl who can do both, right? But again, you see Dream Casper just looking for picks. If he can just catch some, a random headshot here, it's great. Now, what I would love to see is the Dragon Strike be used this way, or even this way, because it's going to force Taimu out of there just enough that you could actually possibly take a pick, because you're going to force him out this way. Let me erase the arrows so it's better to see. You're going to either force him out this way or you're going to force him out that way. And it's very difficult for him to do much of anything there if your team is positioned back here. Here, let me see if I can get a better angle. If your team's basically in position to catch him on his rotate out of the room, right? If he rotates out this way, your team collapses in from here, right? You push him, dead. Or if he rotates out this way, your team's here, you push him, dead. Either way, it does quite a bit. And that's just, maybe an interesting thought that if you ever encounter this in your solo queue games, or if anybody's out there, maybe that's something you could do. Again, he's checking that spot. He's checking that spot forever. Now I wanted to actually see, where did that EMP go? So Dream Casper keeps checking. Yeah, that's good. But where's the EMP at? Not entirely too sure exactly what he's shooting at there. Trying to catch the supports. And again, tanks. EMP on tanks. Lunatic High did it. Eska did it. God bless. Learn it, live it, love it. That's what you do with EMP. You EMP tanks. Now, you can EMP supports. Problem is that it could just be scouted. It's a little bit riskier, right? If you EMP tanks, you're probably more likely to win the fight. But again, there's always the choice that you could EMP the Zen if given, the opportunity to. In this case, Sombra has to run all the way in here without getting spotted. It's a little bit difficult. Yes, we saw him do it before, but I think it's just a little bit more risky. And if you EMP the tanks here, it basically gives up the entire, it's the hard shell of a soft, squishy interior. Once you take away the shell, you can capture all the pieces on the inside, right? But that's generally the concept here for this Dallas strategy. The big ideas are to rotate around health packs with the Sombra, to let your team just get picks just by proxy. You have Tracer, you have Genji, you have Roadhog, you've got Sombra, you've got Zenyatta. It's a pick composition without the insane mobility. And secondly, because of the way that Gibraltar set up and the defensible positions aggressively on point A that you can take, you can also recontest before the end of point A, which burns an insane amount of time and actually is, I think, well, generally for me, I think it actually has a lot of merit in terms of, maybe this being a more generally used strategy, right? I don't even think you have to use the Sombra Roadhog, but you could generally see teams trying to position more aggressively on Gibraltar. We've seen teams like Rogue and Envious do it way back in the day. So I think that, I don't know exactly where it went wrong, but I think you're going to see more teams do this more in the future. But again, that's just Dallas's breakdown of Dallas's interesting composition. So if you like the video, like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening to me ramble for God knows how long this video is.